called for a specific color on the exterior panels. The owner changed his mind and decided to give a change directive to call for a different color. The sub replied saying, you know, this is going to be a $0 impact, and so the owner decided to go with it. They gave that direction to us, we gave it to the sub, and then as time progressed, 10 months into construction, the exterior panels were the wrong color. So our analysis is on where did the quality control program fail, and who is responsible for the $60,000 change order that the sub is requesting. So, where did our quality control system fail? This was during material verification. 3 specific points. During our shop visits, we failed to check the material to make sure that it was the correct color. Upon delivery, we also failed to check for that color. And during initial installation, we failed to pick it up then. We also failed to require performance mock-up. This was something that should have been brought up during purchasing of the subs. We should have decided then that we needed a performance mock-up and that it was important to have this to make sure that everything was being done right. So we missed an opportunity there. And this was also not included on our inspection checklist, which it should have been. Since there was a change order given, we should have taken that change order as an important aspect of the work to follow up to make sure that that was being done properly. So, who is responsible for the $60,000 change order? Correct direction was given from us to the subcontractor. So it is the subcontractor's responsibility to implement any and all change directives accordingly. It puts the burden on their shoulders to make sure that this is done right. Therefore, we believe it is their responsibility to pay the $60,000 that it will take to fix this problem. Okay, so we also did a little bit of lessons learned here. Went back and reviewed it, and we want to get some good takeaways to prevent this in the future. So, some things that we've identified that we can implement in the future is we can call the subcontractor to verify the receipt of the direction to proceed. So once that's out there, we can just give them a quick call, make sure they got it, and that they're applying that direction. And then during the pre-installation meeting, we can ensure that the subcontractor's foreman understands all contract documents, RFIs, and quality expectations. Another thing that we plan to do in the future is to create an inspection checklist covering material specifications, and this checklist will be used during material receiving. So as all the materials come in, we're going to make sure that everything's right. And then finally, what we're going to do is we're going to check the material for conformance as it's being installed. We know that these procedures will ensure that there's no errors in the future. I'm going to pass it off to Francisco with the recap.
Thanks, John. So in closing over the presentation, just wanted to go a couple of the highlights of the project. So this is a first-time client for us. However, it is a structure and a building type that we're very familiar with and very comfortable with. So we know that this is going to be a very successful project for Rensselaer Phelps. So the contract amount is sitting at $65.5 million with a scheduled duration of 24 months to be complete April 17th, 2015. We currently have a general conditions budget of just over $2.8 million, which sits at about 4.8% of our contract, which is very healthy for us. We also have a good cushion in our contingency of $1.7 million, which is, which hopefully towards the end will pose as an addition to our current profit, which is budgeted at $1.7 million, including the concrete profit. and that's about 2.6% of our contract. So with that, we're going to close our presentation, and thank you all for your time.
Okay, good. So we'll go into some questions here, I think. Josh, are you still with us?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll go ahead and pose a few, and we can just kind of walk around the table and ask some questions of the group here. I'd like to start with Cliff for the schedule. You talked about the finished schedule in a little bit of detail, but I didn't hear any description of the structural sequence. I know the team talked about how we'll be self-performing the work, how important it is to get the structural sequence correct and consistent, but I didn't hear any explanation of, for example, the structure sequence on a typical floor. So could you talk us through that?
Okay. What we'll do is we'll go in and we'll for the ground level, let's say, we'll install the slab on the lower floor. We'll also install the walls, the slab, the concrete columns. We'll complete the soffit forming. We'll pour the ground slab, and between that, let me start over. You know, we obviously have to install the reinforcement in the slab, and then we'll take it up. Once we install the reinforcement, we'll pour the slab, we'll pour the columns, we'll soffit form. There's always going to be one floor of shoring, 2 floors of reshoring, and we'll take it up that way. Soffit forming, pour the slab, install the walls and columns. Soffit forming, you know, install the slab, install the walls and columns, and soffit forming. We'll take it on that way.
Then as far as sequencing goes, we didn't identify it on this plan, but we plan on working our way out for structure sort of in this fashion, in order to be able to maximize our use of this road closure here. So, you know, break it out into 3 sections basically in order to have manageable pours and work our way around the structure of it like that.
So we talked about how this is a modified design build project, and I see in the timeline that you gave that we would receive notice to proceed in November, or correction, award would be in November, but notice to proceed would be in April. That sound about right?
Award is November.
So what happens between the award in November and notice to proceed in April? What happens during that time?
Well, it's actually more over a year, right, Cliff?
Yeah, it's over a year,
and a
so
half that the project settles.
Yeah.
It just sits idle
And
before
so-
we're actually given direction to proceed with design. So in that part, we aren't brought aboard until then, until April 18th.
Josh, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was looking at the schedule, Cliff, and just some housekeeping stuff. I know that I know what you were trying to do with showing every floor, but I think it would be better to show a typical floor of your P4 through 7, and then your 9 through the roof, because you're at like 1,300 activities, and your average duration for rough-in is 2 days per floor, and your average duration for finishes is 1 day per floor. And I think that was probably just due to the fact you were trying to squeeze so many activities into the schedule. And really, whenever you're doing the baseline, you want to show your plan and that you're competent in what you're doing, not show every single activity running down the schedule.
Okay. As far as the finish, it's a little more than 1 day per floor. You know, it's around, say 9 or 10 days per floor. But what I've got.
Per trade.
Oh, per trade. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, insulate walls 1 day, insulate drywall 2 days, 1, 2, 16 days
Uh-huh.
per floor, but you're gonna have everybody working on top of each other.
Okay.
So I think it'd be best to set up your schedule, just doing the math per floor of what it's gonna take to get you there as far as your structure, and then obviously your skin, interiors. But I also had a really tough time with that when I was doing it. Really helped me out was just making it simpler, and then if you have time to expand it, that's great, but I think you started off expanded and then tried to condense down and ended up screwing your durations up.
Okay.
Let's take the next 10 minutes here. I'd like to ask questions as if we are the panel at Reno, talking to the project team, asking them to present in character. And then once we're done with that, we'll turn around and do feedback. Does that make sense? All right, so let's keep going with that.
I have a question. If you go back to the concrete slides out there, I heard you guys talking a lot about schedule, maintaining schedule, keeping it pace, repetitive, but I never heard anything about quality and how we are going to ensure that the owner is satisfied with the quality of this concrete. Can you guys please talk a little bit about how you're going to mitigate the quality control for the finished concrete?
Right, so Hensel Phelps quality control program, right, we have with our concrete tradesmen, right, we'll have pour cards, right, that'll be signed off by different parties or different trades out there. So there'll be pour cards for the reinforcement guys, there'll be pour cards for the Inslab MEP guys, and then the same card will be signed off by the actual placing crew. So this card, we don't have an example with us, but basically it would have each tradesman sign off their scope of work on the following trade accepted. So with that, right, our superintendents are out there, our foremen are out there, making sure our specs are being met. But as far as quality goes, it would hold each trade accountable and really make sure everybody's taking that second look at it before moving on to the next step. So that'll help us to make sure that all of our embeds are correct, our tie rods are all in the right spot, and our make sure our rebar and everything is all in place correctly, and then of course we'll have our special inspector on site too, carried under the owner, and they'll be verifying rebar tying, slum testing, and doing all of the other typical quality control.
Alan, we were talking about staff a little bit, and we saw the staff chart up there. And it wasn't clear to me who we're expecting on the project team to be the single point of contact with the client, because all clients want one guy or gal that they can talk to. So for this project, who is that going to be?
So if you can see, you can pull up the staff chart. A little bit down. Yeah, we have the project manager as the point of contact with Strata Properties.
Mm-hmm.
So he's gonna be in charge. He's gonna communicate with the project superintendent any schedule needs, and he's gonna oversee all the paperwork and all the office management.
Okay.
So he's gonna be the one responsible for taking over the change orders, any changes, and just coordinating with the owner.
So does the project superintendent answer to the project manager?
It's a little mistake. It should be like around the same level. The project superintendent is just he'll be in charge of the field, but they'll be working together, not under the project manager. Just a little mistake.
Sure.
I got a question for John.
Go ahead.
On the proposal summary, I see that you have awarded Mighty Ducks the contract with the bond rate at 2.5%. Can you go into your evaluation of why you're awarding the person with the highest bond rate the contract?
It's a good question. Simply as I went through the proposals, I came to the fact that they had the lowest bid. And that's essentially why they got the job.